Church, people of God, followers of Jesus, our Christ. What is this place that we call church? What is this community that we call the body of Christ? I think the church is an extraordinary place, don't you? I think this is a place of inclusion and reconciliation. I think this is a place where divisions between people are torn down and people receive healing. I think this is a place where strangers become family, and everyone, even the immigrants and refugee, are citizens. I think this is an extraordinary place when those who are at the margins in life and those who feel excluded find a place here and are welcome. I think this is an extraordinary place where we can learn, because we are all students of the gospel. We all seek wisdom, because there is none of us, there are none of us, who have all the right answers. We are a household of God, the Apostle Paul says, because we are brought together through the powerful reconciling Spirit of God. And it is the call of God who brings us here every single week. Today's passage from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verses 30 through 34 and 53 through 56, shows people going in crowds to find Jesus, to find a healing touch. They have a hunger for compassion. They have a hunger for wisdom. They have a hunger to be fed and to feel whole. They have a hunger to make sense of a world that was crumbling under the domination of Caesar and Rome. And as the text says in verse 34, they were like sheep without someone to shepherd them. I think that we come here to church, people of God, for the same reasons that people sought Jesus 2,000 years ago. I think people come here to be fed. I think people come here to feel compassion. I think people come here to experience healing. I think people come here to discover bits of wisdom that will help us make sense of a world or a life that we don't totally understand. And sometimes we feel as if our world too is crumbling. And so we, the faith community called the church, we engage in our ministries because we need to, because Jesus Christ has commissioned us to live as the body of Christ that is sent into the world to help God repair all this mess, all this brokenness that people have created. In the letter to the Ephesians that you heard John read, the Apostle Paul was busy at the work of building bridges of understanding and acceptance between two groups of people. And in Paul's world, in Jesus' world, there were only two groups of people. Just two. One was either Jewish or one was Gentile, which simply means anyone who's not Jewish. One could say this was one of the earliest examples of true interfaith dialogue. And the passage speaks of this wall of hostility that's been built and the desire to tear down this wall and to build one new humanity in place of the two, of Jew and Gentile, thus making peace within all of the world. I think of the Apostle Paul as he might stand in the city of Jerusalem today where he studied. And Paul would be so put out with the building of this wall that separates Jew and Palestinian, because Paul was about breaking down barriers of hostility between groups of people. He was about building bridges and not walls. So in this first century world, where one was either a Jew or a Gentile, the writer of Ephesians, which is probably not Paul, most scholars believe that it wasn't Paul, but it was somebody who was a student of Paul's and very familiar with what Paul taught. So this writer, and we'll continue to refer to him as Paul or Pauline, seeks this unity of Jew and Gentile through the wisdom of Jesus. In our world of this 21st century, perhaps we might wonder, is there any wisdom in the teachings of Jesus that can provide us reconciliation and healing that's needed between people and nations who insist on violence, on bombings, and the destruction of the earth? And I think the Apostle Paul would answer that question, yes, most certainly, I think so. In this passage, Paul reflects on the historical division in the early church. It's the first division experienced in this group that will eventually be called the church. Remember, Paul and Jesus and the apostles and Mary, everyone was Jewish. Okay? Everyone was Jewish. But the question was, if you're not Jewish, how then can you belong to this group? That was the question they wrestled with. We would fit into the Gentile category, which is called, as our passage begins, the uncircumcision. That's what the Jewish people called the Gentiles. We would call the Jewish people then the circumcision. It's two terms that Paul uses. Sorry, ladies. Sorry for that. So this divisive issue that was being wrestled over was, if you're a faithful follower of Jesus Christ, then you should be a Jew first. So that means you have to be circumcised and follow the Torah teaching of ritual purity. Then you can fit in as a Gentile. And Paul says, wait, not so fast. And Paul and Peter wrestled over this. They fought over this. One issue. Does one have to become Jew before you can be a part of the household of God? Paul preaches a different path, because Paul likes the Mediterranean travel of the cities. He likes going to Athens, Greece, and he loves going to Ephesus and Philippi and Thessalonica and Rome and Corinth. Paul loves to go into the cities that are the major cities of the Mediterranean world at that time. They were cities of great learning, and there were universities and temple, and philosophers would be preaching in the marketplaces, and Paul would go and have a little talk. And Paul says, there's got to be a way for people to all come together. There's got to be a way, and this is the way. Paul, a good Jew, a good Pharisee, says, we have broken the wall. Gentiles and Jews can be brought together as one new humanity. So because of the work of Jesus Christ, and those around Jesus must have been moved by his inclusion and his concern for people on the margins of life who might not be included. And people were so moved at that they now feel that they can be brought into a new relationship without embracing all of the laws of Torah. And for older men especially, you don't have to be circumcised. Paul is about reconciliation, about bringing people together. And so he initiates this dialogue in Ephesus in an attempt to bridge the division between two groups of people who were inhabitants of this great city, Jews and Greeks, or Gentiles. And he says there is a vision of unity that is possible. It's possible. And so 2,000 years later, we come back here to our time, our place. We come back to the news on TV or over the internet, and we read about the divisions between Muslims and Christians, or between Jews and Christians, or between Jews and Muslims. And we read about our cities now who are becoming like Lincoln, that's becoming a place that's truly interfaith. And we walk down our paths on our beautiful trails, and we see people who are dressed ethnically different, and we know that they belong to another religion. And we have 33 groups of religious faiths here in this city. How are we all going to get along with each other? Do we have to believe like everybody else to get along? Because aren't we all about peace? Aren't we all about equality and justice? Aren't we all about getting along with each other? Today there is a need, once again, for interfaith dialogue. Not only is our own house in disorder, and by that I mean all of the differences, the 320 different denominations of Christian groups. And you know, it's no longer relevant to say this is a Christian nation, because it's not. Nationwide, there are more Buddhists than Presbyterians and Episcopalians. There are almost as many Muslim Americans as there are Jewish Americans. We are home to over 1 million Hindus and 300,000 Sikhs. And almost one half of all Americans under the age of 30 say that the best religion is that borrows from all religions. One of the most brilliant peacemakers in the world, Mahatma Gandhi, said, "I can see clearly the time coming when people belonging to different faiths will have the same regard for other faiths that they have for their own." There is still a wall. There is a wall of division, not only between groups of Christians, but between those of other faiths. People, it seems, love to build walls. Maybe it's our fascination with building, and we start when we're young playing with Legos, building our walls. But now it's not about Jew and Gentile. We've moved past that division in the church. Now it's about right and left. It's about mainline and non-denominational. It's about orthodox and progressive. And I guess every side dreams one day that our side will be victorious. Here in the disciples of Christ, we have moved past the day of conversion. We no longer believe that you have to be converted to our way of thinking in order to get to God. We are about reconciliation, and we just need to keep following this path that Jesus has set for us. And this path is about healing. It's about understanding and forgiveness and mercy and compassion. And this is the path that can unite people together. Because in our community we have found that Jesus is our peace. And so our hearts must awaken to this path of Jesus, a source of peace. I suppose that's why we call him the Messiah. Because he is God's peace. And he has reconciled those who are very far away and those who are near. And we walk by faith and trust because that's what we have. Faith and trust. And we walk in the light of the one called Jesus, who will carry us all home to God. We offer an invitation for you to be a part of a community that seeks to be a reconciling community in our city and in our world. Here we seek to build bridges and not walls. Be a part of this community. We invite you to listen.